Good afternoon. We're going to get started here. I want to thank everybody for coming out on a nice day like this. But anyway, my name is John Gosch. I'm Johnny's father. Probably one of the most publicized cases of a missing child in the country. We just had a filming crew from UK come over in November, and I said, "Why are you doing this?" And they said every month they get 4 or 5 calls in wondering if anybody ever found the paperboys in Iowa. So they came over and did a pretty nice filming deal, a couple nice ladies. And what was really strange was they drove around Odebolt and they fell in love with this town. They did, because at 5 o'clock at night, they were supposed to be in Des Moines or somewhere. And so I went to get something at, I think, the bowling alley, and there they were driving around town, taking pictures of all the popcorn things and everything else. But they just loved it. So I said they'll be back. But anyway, first of all, people wonder, why'd you come to Odebolt? Well, my sister and a friend of hers met Juanita, started looking at properties, and this is how we ended up here. We ended up buying the house from somebody that didn't know, but come to find out he was my 4th cousin. So, but anyway, I was born and raised north of Sac City on a farm with 13 brothers and sisters. Went to school in Sac City till 5th grade. Was in 4-H and all that type of stuff. Altar boy at the church in Sac City. Then we moved to Wall Lake. Was in Wall Lake from 5th grade to middle of my freshman year, and then we moved to Auburn. But so looking around here, I see a lot of faces that look familiar, and come to find out, relatives are sitting here in the room. My great-grandparents were Valentine and Henry and Carolyn Henrich. Had a farm north of town, a couple farms, I guess. And so as that whole family, I think there was 7 or 8 kids in that family. And so they all married and went out, the Roders and all these, the Monarchs and all those people, they're all related. So didn't know that until we moved here. Didn't realize that Valentine and Carolyn were buried out here at the cemetery, my great-grandparents. So, but we like Odebolt a lot. My nephew runs the lumberyard down here, Mike Ulrich. So the Ulrich girls and Zena, they've grown up pretty well their whole life here. But anyway, when Johnny was kidnapped back in 1982, which is 43 years coming up pretty soon, the last thing I ever thought could happen. He was doing his Sunday morning paper route. I'd been with him every Sunday morning except for 2 or 3 in the morning that he was kidnapped. Did not know why he went by himself, because we were going to go to the lake that day and teach one of his kids or one of his friends how to water ski, because we had a boat, and I probably taught 25 kids how to water ski or whatever. But each one of the kids could take somebody different to the lake when we went on Saturdays and Sundays. So when I got the call at 6:55, if I remember right, one of the neighbors wondered where their Sunday morning paper was. And I says, Johnny must have overslept. I ran down to his room. He was gone. So I figured he was out getting ready to go. And so I drove and there saw his wagon, and then something surprised me. His little miniature dachshund that was with him all the time, he'd actually carry the dog in the paper bag with him when he would deliver papers. And it was in the room there just kind of crying, actually. So the dog saw something, we don't know what. But anyway, I came home, told Noreen to call the police. I said, something's not right. Found his wagon, can't find him. And then I thought, well, he might be in one of the customer's house or something, having a hot chocolate, who knows? Because he was a very friendly kid. He'd talk to anybody and carry on a good conversation. So anyway, I went and delivered the rest of the paper, told her to call the police. They finally came over, and their first thing was, well, he's more likely a runaway. And I said, my son didn't run away. So that started the search. Neighbors and friends started going out in the pastures and groves and forest and whatever they could find to look. Because when you do this, most of the kids are found within the first day. Statistics anyway. But we didn't expect a stranger to abduct somebody like this. But anyway, in the U.S., about 2,300 kids a day go missing. These numbers go back and forth and whatever. That's 840,000 a year. So police reports, 840,000 police reports are now written up on missing kids every single year. Most of the cases are resolved right away within hours. They might be at a friend's house or forgot to call or whatever. Many kids go missing permanently and are never found. When my parents had their 60th wedding anniversary at the community center in Auburn, a lady came up, don't remember her name or anything else, but she said, and she was probably in her 70s, she said that their daughter went to Des Moines to nurses training, drove down, never got into the school. They found her car, her purse, everything, and they never found her. They said, we didn't know what to do. We called the police. They said they'd look. Never. But that's a long time ago. And this goes on probably not as much today as it did years and years ago. A lot of the kids go missing is because they have problems with something at home, whether they got grounded for some reason or like that, so they want to either take off or run away or whatever it might be. Or some kids are just thrown out of the house, say, you know, we can't handle you anymore, and kick them out. That happens quite a bit in some other areas. Some kids get lost at fairs or in malls or something of that nature, get stranded. Little older kids might have cars or something, or they get injured and don't know how to get back home or whatever. Family abductions is pretty common in divorce situations where they have a bunch of kids and stuff that one parent will try and take the other kid that they don't have custody. And then the stranger abduction, like what happened to Johnny. So a lot of people don't know how to report missing kids besides calling the local police. But the FBI, National Crime Information Center, had been set up for a long time, but it was like putting the kid's name in a mailbox, but nobody opened it up. So they had that information in their computer system, but nobody was looking for it. So some of the laws have changed and everything else so that they have to respond immediately on a missing persons report. So the National Missing and Unidentified Persons Database tracks missing kids And I'm hoping that all these cuts that are going on in Washington, that they don't start cutting some of those things too. The longest missing kid found alive was a boy that was taken when he was 6 years old, and 73 years later. He was taken from West Oakland, California in 1951, and they just found him. So that would put him at 79 years old, same age as I am. So about 1% of the kids that go missing are still missing. So those figures I had before, 800,000, that means there could be as many as 800 kids are still missing year after year. Some of them are never found. Some of them have decided they don't want to go back home, get into the prostitution rings, pornography rings, or who knows, or out of the country. They ship. This human trafficking is bigger than anybody even realizes. The group that is that goes missing the most are black children. They make up about 33%. And why they are taken, or if they run away or whatever, we don't know. But what happens is that the press does very little when it comes to the black kids, Hispanics, some of the Indians. We lived in Arizona for a while, and the little Indian kids down there on the reservations, they come up missing, the girls, tons of them. And we were getting Amber Alerts. I don't know how often. By the way, this is my wife, Sheila, back here in the back. And she has had shoulder surgery, doing her therapy and all that stuff. So, but getting back on track. And just talking to our great neighbors, Larry and Deb Beckman. They live right next door to us. And then there's Roger Beeler and Bev, and great neighbors. I mean, you couldn't ask for anybody better. So most of the child abduction occurs in just everyday settings, just on their way to and from school. It's very, very popular. They'll lure them in with, could even be somebody that says he's a policeman. You can go to a flea market, buy these badges, put it on your shoulders on a blue shirt or whatever shirt they're wearing in that community, and bingo. Say your mom said I'm supposed to take you home, and school-age kids are the most ones that are abducted before and after school and after dinner at night, especially in the summertime when they're out playing outside. Parents are watching TV or whatever, and they just kind of go away. The younger kids are more likely to be playing or walking with a parent, and somebody can come up and grab that kid and take off in a hurry. Now with cell phones, it's probably a little bit safer because they can call somebody real quick. The older children, teenagers and stuff, the girls especially, they get taken into pornography, prostitution rings, and stuff like that. Family members or acquaintances are some of the most abducted kids, that they know somebody and either made contact with them at school or whatever, and so who knows? I mean, from the time Johnny was kidnapped, we tried to put down everybody that we thought he might be acquainted with, friendly with, or whatever. He would go to the mall, but usually buy with somebody else. And there was a arcade over there that come to find out later on that there was several bad dudes over there that ran these arcades and stuff. Stranger abductions, they're kind of rare, but they represent about 1%, which is still 800 kids a year. Most of the abductions happen on the street, whether they pull up in a car and grab them, or they lure them in with police badges or candy, or, hey, help me find a missing cat or dog or whatever. And most kids will help somebody if they have been told since little kids, that, hey, if they need some help, help them. So, most of the abductions committed by strangers happen in places like football games, baseball games, stuff like that, fairs, at the beach, camping. So where there's a lot of people around where they can come up and grab somebody, that's where it usually happens. Most kids who are reported missing have run away before, and I don't know what that percentage is, or misunderstanding with their parents, like you didn't take out the garbage, so you're grounded, or something like that. And little things that we all did that. We all said, hey, you're grounded. So I thought that was my name for a while. But almost all kids kidnapped by strangers are taken by men. So about 2/3 of the stranger abductions involve female children, because they can sell these kids, the young girls. This relates back to the Indian kids in the Southwest. Pretty little girls when they're born and stuff like that. And they, I don't know how many Amber Alerts we used to get down when we lived in Arizona, constantly. And they usually had pretty good description of the vehicles and all that stuff. Children are rarely kidnapped on school grounds. That's because of the teacher supervision. Some schools have parents that go out there and help supervise with the kids during recess and all that stuff. So they know that there's somebody watching all the time, and they got cameras out there. So, okay, states with the highest per capita will blow you away. Alaska, 42.8 per 100,000 people are kidnapped in Alaska. Or come up missing, I should say. Part of it could be because they get lost, because the terrain up there is unbelievable. It could end up in a lake, could be eaten by a bear, or anything like that. But a lot of kids up there are come missing. Texas, New York, Florida, Ohio, California, and Washington are the top states of missing kids, and top population there too. So Oklahoma has the highest rate of missing persons in the U.S. A lot of Indian reservations in Oklahoma. Whether that's it or not, I'm not sure. Oregon is up there too, 12.5 per 100. Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, about 3 per 100,000. So it's low, but it's still there. The city in the United States that has the most missing people, Phoenix, Arizona. It's the crime capital of missing kids in the country. And maybe it's because they can take them and get across the border quick. who knows, get them on an airplane, get them out of the country. The missing white syndrome, woman's syndrome, is a term that describes when the press will report more on a white missing woman than they will on a black, Hispanic, or whatever. So that slows down the investigations when they don't get the cooperation from the local media. The media is one of the best avenues to, besides the police, to get coverage and find your children. Time frame of recovery of missing kids. Most of them are recovered within a week, about 85%. Within a month, about 95% of the kids in a month. So after Johnny was kidnapped, we were told some of these figures, so kept hoping this week, next week, or whatever. Within 6 months, 97% of the kids are recovered, and within a year, 98%, which still leaves 2% missing out there. All of the different things that a person goes through, you work with the local police, and I'm still working with them. I have meetings on a regular basis, and they're showing me things right now that I didn't know they did. Like, they had a list, our meeting in June, we had a list with all the people that they interviewed, because we laid it out on the table. Dave Busick from Channel 8 is part of our group. There's a little group of about 4 of us that we work on all these different things. And when he got done, he said, he was Channel 8 news reporter, great guy. And he said, I could not have believed what I heard today. He said, I just figured the policeman just drank donuts and drank coffee, or drank coffee and ate donuts. But he said, no, he said, all this information. And neighbors in West Des Moines are still calling the police departments, said, hey, I thought about this, I thought about that. And so he said, every once in a while we get something that really is good. The DCI have been spending a lot of time in the coal mines down in southern Iowa. They just called me the other day and said, we don't know. They said, we've walked these coal mines. We've got some indications that there might be kids buried down there. We don't know who, but we just want to inform you that we're still working. Now, apparently it is, this guy told me, he says, I've walked more miles in the coal mines than I have getting exercise on the streets. He said, it's unbelievable. But also we had some information this past year about a prisoner that broke out of prison in Boston. He got a car, or he traveled to Newton, Iowa, and he told somebody that his car broke down or whatever, but he didn't have a car, but it broke down. But so they took him in. Some of the churches and stuff took him in Newton. Well, this guy had been arrested, put in prison for molesting young boys and young girls and stuff. And just so happens he was in Newton during that period of time when Johnny was kidnapped. He left Newton like 3 or 4 days after Johnny went missing. So he got arrested again and put him back in prison. So the DCI have been back and forth to Boston 2 or 3 times. And every time they mention the word Iowa or mention Johnny's name, the guy said, I'm not talking anymore, just clams up. And I said, well, I'll go out there and I'll waterboard him or whatever I have to do, or hit him with a shovel, I don't care. But they said, well, we can't do that. But we might have something on that. I don't know. As far as Johnny coming to visit Noreen when she made all the information or all the publicity about it, impossible, totally impossible. But I wasn't there, so I can't really say that it didn't happen. But 2 or 3 weeks later, she called the West Des Moines police and says, hey, we want you to go over to the house and look under the crawl space of the family room to see if his body might be buried under there. And the policeman called me. I was out on a project out in New Jersey or somewhere. And he says, isn't that something? He came to visit her at her house 2 weeks ago, and now he's supposed to be buried under the basement. So she's made up a lot of stuff that is not true, and it doesn't help. West Des Moines police won't even talk to her anymore because of everything that she's throwing at them and made up one story after the other. But we've got some pretty good little brochures up here about teaching the kids. And is there any school teachers here? Okay, yeah, school teachers need to, and even a small town like Odebolt or Wall Lake or Lakeview can happen anywhere. They actually like kids from, the abductors like to get kids from smaller communities because they're more friendly. And they will come to a car and ask for directions or whatever. So the big city kids are aware of this, the problems. So, but there are Eton Patz was the first person, young boy, to get his picture put on a milk carton out in the New York area. Johnny was the second, and then Eugene Martin came on after he was kidnapped. But the AE dairy down there was more than happy to do that, but then parents started complaining like, well, the kids don't want to drink their milk because that scares them. So I said, well, I guess I'd rather have a scared kid than one missing. So, but the flyers, I know that everybody has probably seen them. I don't know how many we put out, hundreds of thousands of them. A good friend of mine had a print shop, and he printed those. He would do all of his printing during the daytime after work at night. When he was closed up, he printed flyers for us. And truck drivers all around the country would take hands full of them, put them up in truck stops. And I think we did everything we could to try and find him. And everybody asked, well, is he still alive, you think? You don't know. And some days I think, I hope he isn't, because if he had to go through all this crap that being abused and molested and all this type of stuff, that isn't a life for a kid or anybody. So, but Adam Walsh is another kid that was taken before Johnny was. He was in '81, the son of John Walsh. They found his head floating in a canal down in Florida. He was taken from a shopping mall, and I don't know how long it was. I think it might have been within weeks they found his body. Or just his head. They didn't find anything else, just his head floating in it. A young girl from Texas, abducted in '81. She's still missing. Nicole Burton, Nicole Burton. It's in one of these pamphlets here that you're more than welcome to pick up. So our organization, Finding Children and in Defense of Children, has been going on since about a year after Johnny was kidnapped. A lot of neighbors and stuff came in, helped any way they could. We'd have our meetings every Friday night in our house, and it was nonstop of the door going open and closed. But there's 4 people that are involved in the Help Find Johnny Gosch organization. Ron Sampson, he was the Ankeny Press Citizen publisher. He's now a realtor and retired. He's in his 70s too. We communicate on a regular basis. We've got a 50-year-old attorney in West Des Moines that's on. Dave Busick is part of it. And then there's another guy, we nickname him Yellow Bag, and that's what he wants to be. He's a Baptist minister in Des Moines. But when he was 12, 13 years old, he was delivering papers, and somebody tried to abduct him. And he knew who it was. It was one of the Des Moines Register supervisors. And so we started tracing him back. This guy has a record. He was arrested several times for molesting kids in prison. He died, I think he died in Leavenworth. But then his other partner is from northern Iowa. And he was a supervisor too, next to the kids, all this stuff, all the time. Johnny won perfect awards all the time for delivering his papers on time, collecting his money. I mean, go over to the neighbor and get $1.25 for every week or whatever. And so they would win these little prizes. And one was he got a ride in an airplane. They would take him around. But what was strange about this, and we aren't sure, there was him and 2 other adults in this plane. But they came and picked him up at the house to go on the plane ride. We are not able to find, we got some pictures. We're trying, and I just sent some more of them to West Des Moines Police and the DCI to find out who was on that airplane. It was just a small airplane, you know, and they flew around Des Moines area. But you just do whatever you got to do, you know, when that happens. Law enforcement will do a good job usually. In fact, I didn't realize they did as much as they did. So the morning he was kidnapped, I took off trying to do some searching myself. And here was a policeman sitting on Ashworth Road there in West Des Moines shooting radar. And I pulled in next to him and I said, "Who sent you out here?" "Well, the police chief did." I said, "My son's missing. I want you to go look for him." Come to find out, that was his first day on the job. And had the opportunity this past year to meet him. He was at the meeting. He's now one of the supervisors with West Des Moines Police Department. And he said, "I remembered that all my life." So, but anyway, is there any questions you might have or anything else?
John, do most parents do the DNA testing?
Oh, good question. Question was, do most parents do the DNA testing? I did, but Noreen didn't. She wouldn't do it. In fact, I just had a rerun and an update on it in Arizona, and the cop there in the St. John's police department. His name was James Bond. So, yeah, yeah. Because when they called me and asked me if I would give them another saliva test, and I said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And they said, well, his name is James Bond. And I said, is this a joke? So, but yeah, there's a bank in Texas that takes saliva tests and DNA testing from parents of missing kids in case they pass away and they find a body or something like that, they got something to relate to it. Don't ask me why she wouldn't do it. Same way as taking a polygraph. She wouldn't take a polygraph test. There's been stories about the boy out of Nebraska, Benassi. I met him in prison, and the first thing I asked him, I says, and Benassi's probably about 5'7", something like that, and I said, so if you were involved in his kidnapping, how tall was he when you did that? He said, oh, he came up to about here. And I said, oh, really? Johnny was 5'7" when he went missing. So then I asked the people at the prison, I said, what does he have in his cell? He said, so his walls are just plastered with all the information on Johnny. So he said he studied this case. He makes things up all the time, and so I said we could polygraph him, and they said he's got a split personality and probably wouldn't come up with anything. So, but had calls at night from different law enforcement people. One was a lady that was reading tea leaves, and she said his body is south of Des Moines in a gravel pit. So 11 o'clock at night, we went and looked in the gravel pits. Never found anything. Another one wanted to hypnotize Gretchen, the little miniature dachshund that was with him. I said, have at it. So, but just never know.
So that you said, you gave a percentage of when kids were found. Were most of those runaways, or had they been abused, or how is it that they found them?
You mean the kids that are?
Yeah, you said a certain percentage are found after.
Yeah, they can be found at a friend's house. They can be found at at a mall. Who knows?
So most of those were runaways.
I guess you could call it that. Some of them, I wouldn't call them a runaway. I'd just call them out of the way.
Yeah.
They would, their girlfriend or their friend say, hey, let's go to a movie, and then they would go get something to eat or drink, and they didn't tell their parents. So, but I
from a mother's point of view, how in the world do you deal with that? I mean,
do I have a choice?
no, but I
Yeah.
know you were devastated, and I'm sure you did
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and
First of all, I wasn't the victim. Johnny was the victim, and I remembered that every day when I got up. So if I didn't go out there and help look for him, or Noreen do her press stuff and all that stuff, had to keep it going. A guy by the name of anyway, he was from the East Coast, came and he said, if you don't keep your story alive every day for as long as it takes, nobody will look for him. So, I mean, the people that makes the steps for the pickups, whatever you call those, down in Des Moines, they have a big business. They put Johnny's picture and Eugene Martin's picture on the side of the truck. I saw it in California. Where else we see it at? We saw it in some other state, but it's still running around out there. So, but anyway,
Picture of what he would look like today? One of your photos or anything?
they've done that. Good question. I don't think they're doing a very good job. The enhance, yeah. Who knows? Especially if a kid was put through all kinds of torture and all this type of stuff, who knows what they might look like? Starved and beat up, and who knows? I had a call one night from a young guy from South Africa. I said, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 17 years old." And he said, "I may be on to something." He said, "Every day when I walk from school, there's this backyard, and they've got a young boy with a chain around his neck in with other dogs." And he says, I did some research, and he said, it kind of looks like could be your son. So anyway, I said, "What's in it for you?" "I want to go to college in Iowa." He said, "I'm 17, and he said, I want to go to a school in Iowa." And I said, "That can be arranged." So I was making arrangements to go to South Africa. Warren Buffett in Omaha was arranging the plane and all that stuff. And TV crew from Channel 8 was going to go with us. And then when we called, there was some war that broke out, or some rebellion and something going on, and they kicked all the Americans out of this part of South Africa, and the planes would not fly there. Never heard from him again. So, but yeah, today you can get a kid out of the country probably within a half a dozen hours. So. And the people that are buying these kids, they can buy anything and hide them, and who knows, brainwash them, drug them. So,
How do we stop this? What do we do? We know it's bad.
yeah.
Where do we start?
Keep the pressure on the politicians to find them. Teenagers that go on trips class trips and stuff, like there's another one missing in the Bahamas or somewhere. They know this. They know that they're coming in, and they grab them, but anyway, let's knock on wood that it doesn't ever happen again here or anywhere. So, but as we sit here and talk here, a couple hundred kids have probably been abducted somewhere. And it's not to scare people, it's just laying out the facts. So.
There was a gal that came through the area. She's from Iowa, somewhere over that direction. And she's kind of headed up a group or offered to go around to different places and talk about human trafficking.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've seen that. So.
Yeah, and she had with her at the Lakeview presentation that she did, a gal that was taken and talked about how they threaten, and, I mean, they have such control over them so they don't say
Sure.
anything. So anyway, she finally got out, but she and someone wrote this
Mm-hmm.
And the book is The Franklin Scandal from back in the 80s.
Okay.
In that book, I did buy the book, and Johnny is mentioned in that book.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that she wrote about and all the corruption of lawyers, attorney generals, the CIA,
Yep.
the FBI, all in cahoots, just blew my mind.
And there's a small percentage of those people that are involved in that. Majority of them are out there working for the people and doing a good job, and they care because they got family, they got kids, and we all got something in common, that either we know a kid or we were a kid. So that's simple.
That presentation will be coming to Wall Lake on March 31st, and it's at 7 o'clock at the community center.
Okay.
I think it's grid shock or something like that.
Yes.
Yes, so
Everybody should.
it's open to everyone, so you're
Okay.
invited to
Good. Try and make it.
invite friends.
So, any other questions?
I have two different things. One, I want to commend you for tenacity and sticking to this, because
Thanks.
because of you, you changed a lot of legislation and how
Right.
the police go about these things now, and I think that is a huge change and very important. The other question I have is, I know in documentaries and things I've watched, it doesn't talk much about Johnny's brother and sister, who I know are
Yeah.
a bit older than him. I was just wondering how they have dealt with this.
It's messed up their lives. So, but they both graduated from Iowa State and have got good lives. So. Yes, sir.
I think people, one thing, people gotta get involved. More people just look away from this and see something, well, I don't wanna, either they're afraid or they say, well, that's natural. Whether you're right or wrong, get involved and question what's going on.
Right, right.
I just think people overlook it, don't wanna be, just leave me out of this type deal. If just one eye would
Mm-hmm.
get involved.
You're good. Yeah, the fear factor. Fear factor out there that.
You know, this might be stupid or whatever, but yeah. Take it out.
There's no dumb question if you ask it. So.
Was there a waiting period right at first before the
Yeah.
law enforcement would step into action?
Yeah, it was 72 hours they had.
See, I think that
Yeah.
needs to be changed. I mean,
And that is
you
changed.
know your kid.
Yeah, it's now immediately, thanks to Terry Branstad and the other legislators, and not only in Iowa, but we got it changed all over the country. I remember driving in a blizzard going down to Missouri. One night, I had a meeting going on in Springfield, and I drove down to the Capitol and met with these people, the legislators, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I says, I came to get this done. They said, "It's so bad, we're staying here in the Capitol all night because we don't want to drive on that." And I said, "Hey, it's important." They passed the bill, so.
Because in 72 hours, that kid could be in South
Oh, yeah,
Africa or wherever.
You can be in London in 72 hours, so. Not even first class. So if you need anything, just don't be afraid to holler.
Wasn't there a Martin boy that was missing about that same time?
He was kidnapped about 2 years later. Never found, nothing.
What year was this?
Johnny was 82, and Eugene Martin, I think, was 84. Yep, disappeared on August 12th, 1984.
Because around 1978, I think
they can never put anything together to say that it was anything alike, except they were paperboys.
Both for the Des Moines Register then?
Yeah, they're both Des Moines Register carriers. Eugene's parents have both passed away. His brother is still working on it, but I don't know.
Did Johnny look like you or like your brother, or like his mother?
More like me, I guess everybody says.
So, I mean, if you could take your pic, like, look at you now,
Yeah.
you know, and subtract a few years, or look at you at the age of 55 and see what you look at like at 55
Yeah.
years old.
So that was his picture I had taken at the fair. We were at, he loved to go to the fair, so I'd take a day and we'd go to the fair, just him and I. And so they were taking pictures and actually putting them on buttons for $1 or $2, whatever it was. And so we took that picture off that button that he had that was part of the flyer that was out there. But yeah, he resembled more me, I guess, so. But there's still people that are wondering and getting calls. It was last week when I got a call from the DCI wondering, actually it was West Des Moines Police, about a guy out in DC that was said he was going to do a movie. Well, this guy is a fraud. I got all the information on him. I said, don't listen to him. Tell that movie company don't waste their money because he's a liar. And he came to Des Moines and tried to rip us off, coming up with all kinds of stuff, saying that he was part of the CIA and all this stuff. And he's been in prison for, I think, 8 years. And he got out, molested another kid the second day out, got arrested again, so he's back in prison. So. And I've tried to get people to go down to Leavenworth, the guy the supervisor of the Des Moines Register, and I wanted them to find out who his cellmates were and go in and talk to him, because a lot of guys will brag about something or whatever, but never got anybody to go down there to. And time is going by very fast. So. Well, thank you guys for coming, and if you want to talk, anybody, I'll be here for a while. So. Who-